Can we have a talk?
I want some nasty. Are we having fun yet?
All right, guys. So I've seen the discourse, okay? I've seen you talk on Twitter. I've seen people talk in my comment section, and I've seen people on Discord. Please join the Discord. It's a Spurs group chat, link in the description for that. But I have to say, I agree and disagree with a lot of what you guys are saying. So what I've been hearing a lot of is that people want to make sure that the Spurs do not pass up on a center in this draft. No matter what, you want you a big man. If it's 9th, if it's 20th, if it's 25th, you want a big man. And I have to say, I don't necessarily agree with this ideology, because first and foremost, I'm going to go ahead and tell you why I disagree, but I'm going to also give you an alternative, a much better alternative in my opinion. So first and foremost, if we're going to the 9th pick, okay, the 9th pick is going to have a ton of talent and potential people falling to us. Now, once you get to 9th, the best player available more than likely won't be a center. Let's just be honest. It won't be a center. It won't be a true big. It's going to be a Dyson Daniels. It's going to be a Benedict Mathurin. It's going to be a Sohan. And even Shaedon Sharpe is getting projected to fall potentially at 9th at this point. So we don't know what's going to happen in the draft. It's going to be very unpredictable. But with that being said, the people that are going to be the best available at 9th are more than likely going to be guards. I mean, it's going to be a guard or wing. It's not going to be a true big man. And even if we go down to 20th, because some people say, get a center at 20th. Well, here's another problem. When you get to 20th, the best player available or best players available more than likely are going to be guards. I mean, if Jaden Hardy is there, Kennedy Chandler, even Marjon has talked about how he wants to play for the San Antonio Spurs. Patrick Baldwin, even though I'm not crazy about Patrick Baldwin. But overall, what I'm trying to say is the only true center there or true big man would be like a Walker Kessler. And I wouldn't take Walker Kessler over some of the other guys that's on this table right here. And then even we're going to the 38th. You say, well, what about the second round, Clan? Can't you just take a center and say, well, even in the second round, it's the same problem. Some of the best players or most potential players available aren't necessarily going to be big man. I would take a Procida, and we already know that the Spurs are really looking into him. It's funny they still have Harrison Ingram on here. He's actually out of the draft now. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is there's going to be a lot of players available that aren't necessarily big men. And if you just try to take the best big man available, I think you're going to be selling yourself short. If that's what you're doing, if you're going to play off a position, if you're going to draft off a position, you're going to be selling yourself short. And I don't think that the Spurs necessarily going to do that. I don't think they're going to be worried about position whatsoever, especially after last draft and how that went down. So with that being said, what is the alternative? Because more than likely, I don't think that we can get a Jalen Duren because he'll probably be gone before the 20th. So what do? Who do we grab if we really need a center that's similar to Jalen Duren? Well, I would go after Onyeka Okongwu. That's who I would go after from the Atlanta Hawks, because he's a rim runner. He's a really good defender. He can move his feet fairly well, and he's even projected to be a potential defensive player of the year some year down the line. So I think that that's a guy that you definitely can take. Now, the big question on this would be, who would you trade for him? And why would you do that when you already have a Jakob? You're saying he's a rim runner. I mean, Jakob can rim run kind of a little bit. Jakob can shot block. I mean, what's the point? Well, first, let's talk about who we would trade, because this would just make the most sense. Now, I've seen quite a few people talk about this, and they kept saying, well, the Atlanta Hawks, man, they could have got Vassell. They could have got Devin Vassell in that draft. I don't know why they didn't, and they went after Okongwu. And there's actually a lot of articles saying that they wanted to go after Devin Vassell anyways. Now, this isn't necessarily me saying that Devin Vassell right now as it stands is a better player than Okongwu, and I would just take that no matter what. Not necessarily, but let's keep things in perspective here. Okongwu is a potential star that people talked about, and Devin Vassell, you know, a lot of people talk about how he could be potentially a potential star. And in this draft, when you're going to have to pick up quite a few guards, I mean, I'm sorry, I just think those are going to be the best players available, or probably guards. If you want to limit some of the guards, this would be a good way of doing so. And now here's the reason why I think Devin Vassell makes the most sense. He has a lot of ties to the Atlanta Hawks. Now, like I said, a lot of people expected them to take him in the draft, but not only that, Devin Vassell has said himself that he loves the Atlanta Hawks because that's his hometown. So he was talking about how it will be a dream come true if he actually played for them. He also got, plenty of interviews with them. He got workouts with them. So they do have ties to Devin Vassell. They've shown interest in Devin Vassell. Now, let's go over to the next point, okay? Because a lot of people will say, well, what's the point, dude? Like, Onyeka, I mean, he shoots around the basket. You know, he doesn't really have an outside shot. I mean, is it worth it? I mean, we already have a Jakob. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it makes sense. At least at the very least, Jalen Duren has some type of mid-range that he's working on. I mean, is it worth it? Yes, it's worth it. Now, the reason being is because, to me, Jakob Poeltl, his upside is closer to a Steven Adams, which isn't bad by any means, but that's who his upside is closer to. Or maybe even an Andrew Bogut. Now, when we're talking about Onyeka, he's closer to Bam Bam, and he's close to Serge Ibaka. Those are some of the names that's thrown out there when they make comparisons of him. Now, not only that, I mean, if we're talking about a Bam Bam versus a freaking Andrew Bogut, there's a big difference there. Even though Andrew Bogut was a good player, he was kind of a gritty player, Bam Bam has even more upside than himself right now. And then if you're looking at another player that I personally wanted to just throw out there, is that I think that he moves similar to Rudy Gobert. Now, he's much shorter, smaller than Rudy Gobert, but with that being said, he does move similarly. And he plays, you know, similar defense. Shot blocker, can kind of guard the perimeter a little bit. Really good at switching. He just really reminds me of Rudy Gobert in that regard. But I'm just going to stick with this comparison, the Bam Bam and the Serge Ibaka. Now, with that being said, some people will probably try to point out, well, his stats aren't that great. Like, look at the stats. And dude, it needs to be contextualized. He didn't really get utilized much at Atlanta. His first year, I believe he endured a left foot injury, so that kind of set him back a little bit. And then this past season, it's kind of the same thing. Okay, they just didn't use him like a lot of people expected them to use him, and that's why his stats look like this. So, but if we scroll down, we look at the per 36, which isn't always accurate. Okay, but I do like looking at per 36. His stats will look something like this. This past season, 14.2 points per game, 2.2 blocks, 1.1 steals, 1.9 assists, 10.3 total rebounds, and obviously 69% field goal percentage. So it does look good. His upside is definitely there. So all I'm trying to say is this: if you want the San Antonio Spurs to get a Jalen Duren in this draft, or want them to get a really good big or a true center, a true big man in general in this draft, I don't necessarily think that you're gonna get that here. I'm sorry. I think the best players available, it's just not going to be those bigs. And that's just my thought. And I don't think that the Spurs should necessarily draft after position. Now, if you're worried about too many guards, if you're worried about too many wings, if you're worried about anything like that, well, at the end of the day, you could easily just trade one. And I think that would be the best outcome. I think that would be a smart outcome. And I think that it would work for both teams. And this is not someone to sneeze at, okay? While we love Devin Vassell, and while Devin Vassell is a really, really good player, this is not somebody that you want to just look at and say, oh man, he's just this, that, and the third. No, Onyeka has serious upside. He could seriously be a star in this league. And Atlanta Hawks, this would be the perfect time to grab him while they're not necessarily utilizing him. So you guys just let me know what you think. Those are just my thoughts on this. I just wanted to put a video together to see if we have any other alternatives. And I'm sorry, man, I would take a Bam Bam if it's up to me. So you guys let me know what you think. I'll get with you later. If you want to support the channel, only $2 a month. Patreon, YouTube members, link in the description. Until next time, deuces.